Hey everyone, welcome to Tutoring. I hope you're having a great day. Today we are doing question 6 from chapter 4F, and more specifically we are doing question D from question 6. So this is on your complex number chapter, and it's going to be one of those typical complex questions that you have to make sure that you're 100% on it, okay? So let's get into the question first. Question 6, for each of the following, factorize the first expression into linear factors over complex plane. So this is your first expression right here, and basically we just have to factorize it. So find the three linear factors right here. And then given that the second expression, so z minus 2i, is one of the linear factors. So essentially z minus I is one of this factor of this polynomial expression. We need to find two more because z cubed means we have three linear factors, okay? We have one, we need to find the other two. So how would you normally do that? Without even going through this question, you have to be able to determine, right, what are my possible factors, okay? So z minus I is one factor that we know for sure. So that I'll call that a complex factor. So it's over the complex plane. And then your other two factors, right, what can they be? So I like to always ask this question before I go through the actual long divide, solving for the actual factors. Right, if I have this complex as my factor, my coefficients for the polynomial expression right here is complex, not real, then my other two factors, right? So the overall expression is complex. One of them I know is complex. What must my other two be? Okay, so let's look at the possibilities. If my other two are real, so two reals and one complex, would that, if I was to multiply these three linear factors together, can I get a expression, polynomial expression, that has complex coefficient? Yes, you can. Because what happens is real multiplied by real will give you only real terms. And it's very simple, z plus 1 multiplied by z plus 2, for example. There is no imaginary term. If you try to expand this bracket out, you will get only real coefficients. So that means no I at all, okay? And of course, if you multiply real with complex, what you end up with is complex. So for example, z plus I multiplied by z plus 1 multiplied by z plus I, you will end up with an I at the end, okay? And then you'll still have, IZ and all that. So that is an imaginary term. So complex multiplied by real will give you complex, which at the end of the day suits what you need, right? Complex coefficient. So yes, the possible answers, the possible set of solutions you can have is one complex and two real. So I'm just trying to, judge what my possible answers are. It's good to always check that as well, because one more thing is this actually happens quite frequently in the exam where they ask you a question, okay, what is my possible set of solutions, without asking you to solve for the actual solutions or factors, okay? So one complex, two real, that is a possibility, but what else can we have? So we know that the overall is complex. We know one of the factors is complex. What other two factors can we have? Okay, so let's try maybe one complex and the other one is real, okay? So if this is a complex and that's a complex multiplied by complex terms, it depends. Okay, if these two complex terms are conjugates, so for example, let's just say it was z plus I times by z minus I, they are conjugate pairs, you'll get z squared minus iz plus iz, so that cancels out, and then you have negative I squared, which is plus 1. But what you see here is you won't see any imaginary numbers, so it's not complex over the complex plane. So what you end up with is, if you multiply two conjugates, then you actually get a real. But if you multiply two complex that are not conjugate, so maybe z plus I and z minus 5i or something, then you actually get complex, okay? So these two complex terms, factors, cannot be conjugate, or else you get real. And we don't want that, because real, eventually when you multiply that by real, you get real. But when you multiply complex with real, you always get complex, which is what we need again, okay? So yeah, another possible answer is you have two complex that are not conjugates and you have one real, okay? That's a possibility. And there's actually one more, guys, and that is three random complex. Actually, there's two more. There's three random complex, not conjugate, complex multiplied by complex will still give you complex coefficient. And the other one is you have two complex that are conjugate, so I'll label CC as conjugate. So that will give you a real. So if these two complex are conjugate, they give you real. So I'll call them conjugate pairs. And if you multiply them by another complex, random one, real multiplied by complex, as we all know, will give us complex coefficient. So yes, that is also a possibility. So you have 4 different sets. In the exam, it's a multiple choice to let you pick one, or which one can't be it, then you don't pick any of these, okay?